Big fluff.
Hello again, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
And it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And you may be clued in by Joel's genius intro, but there's a new Superman coming out directed by James Gunn, and we hope it's great, and it probably is good. But there were a lot of bad Superman movies, so we're watching two of them. The last two in the Christopher Reeve run of movies, Superman 3 and Superman 4. This week, we're doing Superman 3.
Yes. And if you're like, well, what are we going to do for the rest of the month? Well, there's also another big superhero movie coming out. We are also going to be watching the two of the Fantastic Four movies to prepare for that. And I say that to Andy because I do want to ask you before we get into this movie, who do you think needs their movie to be better, like to be a big hit? Is it James Gunn and Superman, or is it Marvel and Fantastic Four? Who needs it more?
That's a great question. I would say if you take out the makers of the movie, I might go Fantastic Four. Let me rephrase that. I think the MCU needs Fantastic Four to work more than Superman needs to work for James Gunn's DCEU.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I do think James Gunn needs a good Superman movie. Like, I think that for that universe, I think a big problem has been they haven't really nailed Superman since Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. And that's a shame because like Henry Cavill was like bred to play Superman.
Yes. Although Henry Cavill and Chris Evans both have something in common, which is like they are both fantastic casting for superheroes, but they're both so much better at being dicks.
Yeah. No, that's objectively a true statement.
Yeah. But yeah, Cavill was great. I mean, there's been things I've liked. We've done previous Superman movies.
Yeah, we did Man of Steel and we did the Justice League movies.
There is something I've been thinking about that I think will be an interesting theme to keep in mind this month, which I think with Fantastic Four, the thing they've kind of figured out where they went astray, and I think to some degree this is true of Superman and why it worked well in the 70s, is like, I think with these characters, there's a specific sort of time and like world that they belong in. And I think they finally figured that out, like after trying to modernize the Fantastic Four, that they just went retrofuturism. And with Superman, it's more, it doesn't matter the year so much, but I think the 70s understood who the character was. And then they tried to make him Batman for a lot of years, and it really didn't work very well.
Well, Zack Snyder actively tried to make him Batman and tried to make Batman the Punisher.
Yes.
And Batman and Punisher solving crimes together. I'd watch that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar to this season of Daredevil, or any season of Daredevil with the Punisher in it. I think it goes down like that, but
that's objectively true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it I just hope that this Fantastic Four is good, because I really like the Fantastic Four.
I do too, and I think they're a tough thing to get right. just because they are kind of antiquated. And I think that's the charm.
Yeah. And especially because the best Fantastic Four movie is The Incredibles.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I also, by the way, I don't know how likely this is to happen, but I will say, of all the things with Fantastic Four being in the MCU, the thing I would like to see the most is them interact with Spider-Man, because those were some of my favorite comics. Were Spider-Man's dynamic with that group.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, I don't think I'm taking a bold statement by claiming that the multiverse run has been less than stellar.
What?
I know. It's harsh as it may be. I think Marvel, Feige, I think you need to hear this. And we know you're listening.
Yeah. But what about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? That wasn't them.
Yeah, it wasn't them.
What about Everything Everywhere All at Once? Oh, that also wasn't.
Also not them.
Yeah, then they haven't done great.
No. Loki was good.
Loki was good. Yeah.
Loki is the best they've done with the multiverse thus far. And Deadpool and Wolverine with multiverse stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like Spider-Man.
I like No Way Home. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. I enjoyed that.
I did too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that the existence of the multiverse is the problem. I think it's just been...
They're running out of steam a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, the Infinity Saga is maybe the most impressive thing ever done in movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I just recently did that thing where the New York Times was asking for your 10 movies of since 2000. And I put Infinity War on there because I think just for pure ambition, that movie existing is an achievement.
Yeah. And I think that belongs over Endgame because Endgame is just the follow up and it's the first swing. That's the more important one.
Well, it's also, to me, it's the Empire Strikes. One, I think it's just better, but it's the Empire Strikes Back of the MCU, which is better than Return of the Jedi, where it's just it's the one where the villain wins at the end, which is always going to be an audacious and sort of fun move. And I think, because when are we ever going to get to talk about Infinity War, if not on this Superman episode? But if I can have 5 seconds, the thing that's brilliant about that movie that I truly love is that Thanos is the protagonist and you don't realize that until the end of the movie, that you think Thor is the protagonist, but he's actually the antagonist. And they're both in the opening scene together. And you think you're watching a movie about Thor defeating Thanos, but you're actually watching a movie about Thanos defeating Thor. And by the time you realize that, it's so horrible and so amazing to watch. And it feels really satisfying.
When he snaps that
you're like, oh, that's the movie I've been watching. It's Thanos's movie, because Thor shows up and he gets the big oh, you're in trouble now from Ruffalo. And you have the moment where you think Thor is going to win. But that's the moment in the movie where the villain it almost has the upper hand on the hero, and it's going to be harder than ever for the hero to win, but somehow they find a way to win, which is the snap. It's actually structured brilliantly, that movie.
it's really great.
Yeah.
You should watch that.
So that movie's great. If you haven't seen it, stop what you're doing and watch Infinity War. It's great. Endgame, though, has the final battle of Endgame. It might be the most impressive technical thing they've ever done.
Yeah. And there's only a few mistakes, like Hulk in the foreground and background in one shot. And there's a couple little glitches like that, but it's
and there's the fun game of every once in a while a character pops up, and I won't say which ones I mean, but you can decide who I mean, where you're like, we're featuring this one? Really? Right now? There's so many amazing characters we could be spotlighting. What's T'Challa doing? Can we see him?
Sure, he's there, right?
Yeah. Sure, Ant-Man's in the battle, but I don't need to see him at this second.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
We could be spending time watching Rescue.
Yeah, that's who we all wanted.
Anyways, Superman 3.
Yes. So now that we did all that, that's not helpful to this. I do think a thing that we need to do, that this is now focused, but I think to talk about Superman 3, we can't get into it without talking about Superman 2, because I think it is important to note that Richard Donner made Superman, which was a hugely popular and beloved movie. He was hired to make Superman 2, which he was fired from.
Well, and shot a ton of it.
70% from what I read. He filmed 70% of the movie. He was fired by Telegram. And it was just because he didn't get along with the producer, like, basically. And from what I read, it seemed like the producer was difficult. And I'm just going to side with Richard Donner because evidence of like what it's like when he's in charge.
Goonies.
Yeah, exactly. Like he has a filmography that I trust. And so therefore, I'm going to lean towards trusting Richard Donner.
And I mean, Richard Lester has a couple of good movies.
Well, but that's not even like Richard Lester was friends with Donner and like was apparently classic Hollywood move brought in to like just mediate because Donner wasn't getting along with the producer. And then eventually they fired Donner and just gave it over to Lester, which is what they do. That's still the same exact move they did to Snyder to replace him with Joss Whedon. They love to bring in a guy to help who's going to take your job. That's always the move. So be suspicious. If you're a director and they bring in another director to help you, you're done.
Yeah, that guy's the director now.
Yeah, so
look at me. Look at me. I'm the director now.
Mm-hmm. That's what Lester said to him.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, so Superman, because we're not going to talk about it. All the Supermaning in Superman is great.
Yeah, I think Christopher Reeve is such brilliant casting that his existence alone makes these movies like they elevate them significantly. And I think everybody loves them primarily because of how great he is at being Superman and how fun it is to see him be Superman. I think that creates a lot of goodwill in all of these.
And the odd part is then you have Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, who they've never gotten right on screen, which is wild.
Yeah, it seems like such an easy villain. And I have some faith in James Gunn. And I, without getting into the real world, I think there's never been a better time to get Lex Luthor right in terms of like a megalomaniacal billionaire who's ruining everything. I think we could find that in 2025.
Wait, a bald one, though?
Yeah, that's true. It'd have to be like a bald guy that's in charge of a lot of stuff and is a billionaire and like has a lot of power to ruin everyone's daily lives.
Yeah. Not one with hair, though.
No. Different.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird in the new Superman movie where the biggest thing Lex Luthor does is just make all his employees pee in bottles because he won't give them breaks.
Right. And then, refuses to give a very obvious endorsement to a candidate.
Yeah.
Objectively make the world a better place relative to the other options.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, like Gene Hackman, one didn't want to be bald. That's a weird choice.
Huge problem. That's like the thing about the character.
To the point that he was like, fine, but I'll let you style my hair differently in almost every scene, so it seems like I'm wearing a variety of wigs. What a weird concession.
Yeah, it's also, there's an infuriating scene in the first one where he's swimming and he wears a swim cap that's supposed to be covering his bald head, but you can see sideburns sticking out because he still has sideburns.
Yeah, and although Lex Luthor, as portrayed in those movies, would absolutely be the type to put on his wig, his toupee, and then put the bald cap over his toupee.
I guess. But it's also,
it's absolutely a mistake. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is like Lex Luthor is treated as a joke in the movies, which is maybe okay, but it's like his plan in the first one is just like to blow up California for real estate. Like it's a little too silly. That's almost right. I do believe that billionaires would almost do that. But like, I think like,
wait, you're saying a billionaire real estate developer suggested leveling a populated area in order to sell it as commercial real estate property?
Actually, you know what? Now that we're saying it out loud, it does sound real. Yeah.
Like that. Nah. I mean,
but yeah, Lex Luthor is not quite, it doesn't quite work. But it works enough. The thing that Donner does that's infuriating is like Superman is already too powerful as a character, and they continue to just make up new powers in these movies throughout them. And it's like he has enough. Like the turning back time, which has been much discussed in the first one, is very silly because one, I think it's Neil deGrasse Tyson's origin story is that he saw that as a kid and he's devoted. He's now Lex Luthor as like he's devoted his life to explaining why movies have science wrong, because that wouldn't do anything to fly backwards. And like, but there's that. And then in the second one, his kiss erases, Lois's memory, which what?
And there's also the scene where they teleport and he throws the cellophane S at them.
Yeah. He also seems capable of in this one as well. Like he can kind of just have multiples of himself. Like there's the thing in the fortress and he fights himself in a junkyard in this. He seems to be able to split himself into two in these movies. So they keep making up new powers. But anyway, I was saying all the thing about Donner because so they fired Donner, that Lester took over. Lester primarily known for like doing Beatles movies and doing comedy. His comedy is very evident in these movies. He's like one of the things, so they had almost finished 2, but he reshot a bunch of 2 just so he could get sole director credit. And so you get a lot of scenes where when Zod is like blowing people back in New York, there's like a guy holding an ice cream and it flows into another guy. Yeah. And like there's a guy on a phone and he's like holding onto the phone as he's being.
There's very like Harold Lloyd slapstick.
Yeah, that's like the big thing that he added. And then you can see that. So this is now the first movie that he's solely in charge of. And it's like now we put Richard Pryor in it. And now it's just a
classic slapstick comedian.
That is what he's known with that match thing that he did.
Yeah, that was some hilarious physical comedy.
Yeah. So, but like, you know what I mean? He put a comedian as the villain. Like it's much more comedic overall. Well, redeem. But actually, maybe that's a good place to start. Is I think there was a clear pattern that this movie immediately abandoned. And I think it's a good starting place of there's a clear formula for success for a Superman villain. And that's smart guy, lady, and oaf. That's what you need. Smart guy, Lex Luthor. Lady, Miss Tessmacher. And then Otis, right? Is
the oaf.
And then it's Zod, Lady Zod, Big Oaf Guy.
And Big Oaf Guy.
Yeah. That's the formula. That's what you need.
Yes.
That's what works. And in this movie, it's guy from the Naked Gun movies, lady, other guy, and Richard Pryor.
That's right. There is another. Or no, there's 2 ladies.
Is it?
Because there's.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Sorry, it's 2 ladies. Yeah.
Because it's guy, lady, Pryor.
Yeah. So it's because they already messed up the formula. Yeah.
Benson or whatever his name is. His sister, and then his lover, and then Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
And then magic computers.
Yeah, which were supposed to be Brainiac, but then they made it not be Brainiac, but still made it be magic computers.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that they haven't done Brainiac in a Superman movie.
Yeah. It's,
like he is the 3rd biggest Superman villain, and they made enough Superman movies to potentially do Brainiac.
Right. But yeah, I think they messed up the villain pattern. I also just, we talked about some of the problems with Lex Luthor. I think 2, you can see that like they fired the director and hired a new director. And I think there's some tonal problems in 2. And there's little things that bother me about that movie. But Terrence Stamp as Zod is so good.
So good.
That you forgive like him. And I think some of the best stuff is just him and Christopher Reeve and that moment when they're fighting in Metropolis and they realize, oh, he cares about people. And if I just like
hurt people,
like if I hurt people, that hurts him. And I think that's that is what a Superman movie should be. We're equally strong. We both from Krypton. We both have the same powers, but I have an advantage because I can like try to harm other like random people and that will mess him up. That's really good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So, but this movie, it's just, I mean, everything about it is wrong. It's hard to figure out where to start because.
Let's start with the opening credits.
Okay. Yeah, they already did those wrong because they very clearly established in the first two outer space, big, pew, like words coming towards you credits.
And then in this one, there's like this Rube Goldberg slapstick routine, silent movie. And then the credits are like the same pew from the bottom, but it messes with the film stock. So like the lower third is all blurry.
Yeah, it doesn't look right.
It's so bad.
When it's like in the first two, that's such a slam dunk. Like just how fun it is. You get the John. Oh, also, other thing we should mention is John Williams also hated working with the producer, and he also didn't do the music for this. Like, so he was also not involved.
Yeah,
which is a big problem.
I think by default we can't silver lining than the Superman theme, which rules.
Right. Well, because it wasn't written for this movie. But yeah, John Williams' Superman theme with titles that fly towards you is already setting you up for success.
Yeah, you're already in.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we lose that. Yeah, then probably the biggest other reason to malign this movie is, and again, that's why I wanted to set up everything, because I think everything leads back to these problems of Richard Donner getting fired. Because, another thing to mention, Gene Hackman was so mad that they fired Richard Donner that he refused to participate in the reshoots for 2. And so they had to use the Donner footage for him. They were not allowed to shoot anything new because he wouldn't come back. He's not in this movie because he's loyal to Richard Donner. Margot Kidder, also furious they fired Richard Donner, and because of that is in this movie for 5 minutes.
Yeah, she gets fridged 3 minutes.
Yeah, she's in. They filmed one scene with her where she's in the opening, and then they just like she's only in the newsroom. They clearly filmed that in a day, where it's just like she's
the
like,
take of that scene.
Yeah, and it's just like her being like, "Oh, Clark, you're going to Smallville," and then it's like, "Oh, Clark, you're back from Smallville," and that's her entire role in the movie. And
I'm going to Bermuda. I'm back from Bermuda.
Yeah, it's so they can say she's in the movie, but they're clearly punishing her, and that's a shame because she's great as Lois Lane, and I do think the movie loses something.
Yes,
by not having her around.
Yeah. But yeah, so the basic plot of the movie, Richard Pryor is down on his luck, bums a cigarette off a guy who has a matchbook advertising for computer programmers.
As you do.
Because that's a thing that happens. Mm-hmm. And so then learns to be a computer programmer, does the Office Space scheme and rounds all the money into his account. Yep. And then, Robert Vaughn, is that the guy that plays?
Sure.
Yeah.
The Naked Gun guy.
The Naked Gun guy.
Yeah.
He hires him to do his bidding. It is Robert Vaughn. I nailed it.
Nice.
Yeah, and then he writes a code that can kill Superman.
Well, he
take over the weather satellite.
Well, first, so let's get this right. They want him. Robert Vaughn wants him to change weather patterns because he's a evil billionaire, and like being able to affect the weather would be very profitable to him. So they create a tornado that would mess up all these crops, but Superman shows up and fixes it. So then he thwarts them. So then they're like, kill Superman, and Richard Pryor tries to synthesize kryptonite, but there's an element in it that he doesn't know what it is. So because he has the cigarettes, he just puts tar in as the missing element. And when he does that, it just makes Superman a dick.
Yeah. it just makes Superman a dick. And then you get a Superman that doesn't look anything like Christopher Reeve. Is the weird, like, it looks like a different actor to me.
What do you mean? Just the way he's styled?
No, like his facial features, like it doesn't look like Christopher Reeve. I don't know why. Like
I don't know. I
when
mean,
even when they're fighting each other, like even then they are clearly using a body double. But like when you see them cut back and forth, I'm like, that doesn't. Like I know they didn't, and I know they like, but it's weird.
yeah, that's interesting. I didn't have that, but I'm also like that might just be a testament to Christopher Reeve and what a good actor he is, because
It might be.
A big part of it, like one of the reasons that I think he's the best Superman and Clark Kent, and I'm obviously not the first to point this out, is just the physicality of like how he slumps his shoulders when he's Clark and how he stands up straight when he's Superman, and physically sells that there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, no, his Superman and Clark Kent differentiation is phenomenal.
Yeah. So I think some of that might just be acting. I think it is hilarious that evil Superman's suit is just the color that like Snyder made all the suits. That's just like standard now. Was that like dropping, into muted. Like a darker muted like colors.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Superman is evil. It leads to a truly hilarious scene where someone asks him to save something and he says, "I don't do that anymore." Just great.
And then he goes and straightens the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and then blows out the Olympic torch. Yeah,
that's the thing, is like evil Superman is just a petty dick. Like he's not like evil Superman in the way Snyder would do it. Like he's not Homelander. Like he's not like doing like truly evil things. He's just like being a kind of petty nuisance.
He's just a petty dick.
Which is, look, we haven't pivoted yet, but objectively better. That like a guy with godlike powers is just like, what if I straightened the Leaning Tower of Pisa?
And so then Superman fight clubs himself.
Yeah, so he goes to a junkyard. And again, I'll ask you this, because there's zero chance the people who made this movie thought about it, but I just want to ask you, when you watch it, like, do you think it is Fight Club? Like you said, do you think it's meant to be metaphorical, and like this is an internal battle that we're seeing externalized, and maybe he is literally fighting himself? But do you think there are actually two of him, or we're just seeing two of him?
I think the movie makers think there's two of them.
Okay. You're probably right. I also
I
don't know what
the reality is that he's fight clubbing.
Yes. I also don't know what to make of the fact that the good version of him is Clark Kent, because I don't think that's right. Because I think it should be two Supermen. And I think they only do it to give the shot where he rips the shirt open in a Superman again. But I think it should be good Superman versus bad Superman, because I don't think Clark is real. I think Clark's the thing he pretends to be.
Right. Clark is the mask that Superman wears. Like he is Superman, and he pretends to be Clark.
So good him shouldn't be Clark. Good him should be good Superman.
Right. And that's another half-assed Superman, iconic Superman villain, because petty dick Superman is kind of Bizarro, but not quite.
Yeah, but Bizarro Superman's not a dick. Like, I mean, maybe the straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa is maybe more something Bizarro Superman would do. Like, because he was just kind of dumb and weird, and like, he wasn't like evil. He was just like off. Everything he did was like off.
But yeah, so Clark beats Superman, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, which also, like, it's a problem, too, because canonically in the last movie, there's a whole thing that I could get into if we were talking about Superman 2, about how Clark gives up his powers for 5 minutes. But when he does, he gets his ass kicked by a random trucker. Like, and it's embarrassing how, like, I get that you don't have Superman's powers, but like,
you were 6'4", 220.
Yeah, like, why can't you throw a punch? Which I also, since we don't ever get to talk about that movie, how sad is it that Superman goes back and beats that guy up? Like, you're a god.
That's a Richard Lester move, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. Because like Superman shouldn't need to, like, one, knowing that you could punch that guy into the sun should be enough to give you comfort. But it's just some weird bruised ego thing that when you lost the powers, you learned that that guy could beat you up and then you needed to go beat him up for no reason.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. And so then Richard Pryor starts to feel remorse, but also writes code that can kill Superman with missiles.
Yeah, that's when they
video game.
Yeah, they build like a supercomputer and he plays like a Superman video game and the supercomputer can shoot kryptonite and it has missiles and I don't know. And then at one point the lady, the
sister,
you know, the sister, she becomes a Cyberman, I think.
Yeah. And then Superman wins. And then the credits roll. But the only thing I get right from the Superman movies is that the last shot is him flying in space.
Yes. Yeah. They got that down. Yeah, it's weird too, by the way, like, because there's do you know the woman's name that's the lady that's not the sister?
The character's name is Lorelei.
So I do think, one, we should talk about the fact that when Superman is evil, he bangs Lorelei. Like, evil Superman just straight up, like, sees her. I think she's like lounging on a billboard or something. And he just shows up to her at night and he's just like, hey, I'm evil Superman. Let's bang. And then at the end, he's good Superman and he sees her and straight up just goes, new phone, who dis, like, to her face. He acts like he's never seen her before. But that's bad. But I also think it's terrible that Richard Pryor has been trying to kill him the whole movie. Lorelei's been a pretty interesting. I actually think of the villain character, she's the one that I find the most interesting because she's like, she doesn't really seem evil. She just seems evil adjacent. And she's actually smarter than she's getting credit for, but nobody's really listening to her. And she's very sweet towards Superman because she's kind of in love with him. He leaves her to die and saves Richard Pryor. And I'm like, you're only saving Richard Pryor because he's a big star in this movie.
Plot armor. Why
are you not saving Lorelei, who's like, she's been down since day one with Superman and she helped you in this battle.
She's down bad for Superman.
She's down bad for Superman. She helped you in this final battle. You leave her to be crushed in the cave.
In the mountain that's falling on them. Yeah.
Yeah. After loving her and leaving her, you remember that you banged her. I don't believe that he doesn't remember that he banged her. He's just pretending that he didn't.
Oh, yeah. It's 100% new phone who dis.
Yeah. He's letting her die because he doesn't want it to get out that Superman banged this lady.
Right. Because he was busy banging Annette O'Toole as Lana Lang.
Yeah. Which we haven't. Yeah. So we haven't talked about. Annette O'Toole is brought in as Lana Lang, a character that is not present in Superman 1, even though it has an extended amount of time spent in Smallville with a different actor playing young Clark. But
with a voice dub by Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. We see his high school experience in 1. And then this movie pays no attention to anything that was canonically set up in that one and just does its own retconning of what his high school experience was.
And instead, Mad Mardigan's buddy from Willow is his bully, and Annette O'Toole, Lana Lang, who's in the comics.
Lana Lang, yeah, for sure is a well-established character. And I have no issues with, like, her. I think is more forgivable, just like we didn't happen to see Lana in Superman 1, but she exists. But there's like zero effort to match anything that we saw in the first movie. Yeah. And like, that is a little infuriating that they didn't like try to incorporate what was established.
Yeah. Not one iota.
Yeah. There's also a thing that I like when I was reading about it too. It seems like this movie can't even figure out what year it is because it's like, the reunion year doesn't match that if it's an Olympic year, and like there's just like a whole technical set of problems with like even figuring out what issues. What year this movie's set in, basically.
1980
something. Yeah. But not that that's a big problem.
No, that's also the least of this movie's worries.
Also, I like Annette O'Toole. Just gonna be on the record about that. Yeah. I think
played Margot Kent Kidder on Smallville.
Yes. Well, I don't know. How close are we to pivoting? Because I think like I have more to say about that if we
do we want to talk more about the Superman video game?
I mean, if you want to, sure.
It's just so silly that like it's just so silly. I'm ready to pivot.
Wasn't it made by Atari? I think it
was made by Atari.
Yeah, who then I think tried to make a Superman 3 video game that I want to say was never released. You know,
that sounds right.
But yeah, I don't. Yeah, the logic of why it's a video game doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah, but shall we?
Yeah, let's pivot.
Pivot!
Yeah, I think you've said two things that now that we've officially pivoted, I want to say I think are silver linings. One, this movie gave us a better use of the plot line, but an amazing plot line in Office Space. And they literally say it's the plot of Superman 3.
Yeah, it's the scheme from Superman 3.
Which is funny, too, because I obviously remembered that. But then like watching this movie, it's weird how small of a plot point it actually is in Superman 3 compared to it's a bigger plot point in Office Space.
It is the central plot point of Office Space, arguably.
But it's kind of like a throwaway thing in this. It's just to show that Richard Pryor is smart.
Is good at everything is computer now.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that is, you have to, I think the cultural impact is a silver lining. And similarly,
for sure.
You said it, but yeah, Annette O'Toole by being Lana Lang in this, then when they made Smallville, they cast her as Martha Kent. And she's a fantastic, I watched every episode of Smallville for some reason. I don't know why. Some of them were good, but I stayed till the end. And she's an amazing Martha Kent. Like I think she might even be better in that role than she is in this movie. Like she's really good.
Yeah,
in that show.
She's good in this movie too.
Yeah, it's not a knock on her in this movie. She really gets a lot of time to breathe and to play a full character, and I really like her in that show. Her and the Dukes of Hazzard guy are the Kents.
That's right.
Yep.
Smallville.
That show is wild because it got like over time. I think everyone showed up. I think Christopher Reeve showed up there at some point.
He did. He was like a quasi villain character in the early seasons.
Yeah. They got Margot Kidder. I remember showed up. Like
Gene Hackman didn't do it.
No, I don't think Gene Hackman was aware that Smallville existed.
That's probably right.
It'd be funny if he was watching and he was furious. He was just waiting.
John Glover's playing Lionel Luthor and it could have been me. What?
Also, John Glover's so good in that show.
John Glover's just great. Big fan.
He's a national treasure. I will stand by that. That like there might not be a better just like that type of villain of just, like
to again highlight also, Richard Donner. He's in Scrooged. He's great in that.
Well, that's what I was going to say, too. It just occurred to me. Not only is he great in Scrooged, he literally plays a Richard Lester type character who shows up to steal the Christmas Carol show from Bill Murray. Yeah. Like he's the guy that the studio brings in Richard to replace Lester. Bill Murray. Yeah, so that's really funny, too. I'd never really thought about that. But yeah, John Glover's amazing. Also, Gremlins 2, his finest work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Anyways.
But yeah, I think those things like that cultural impact of those things are silver linings.
Definitely
worth mentioning. Also, when we were in the first half, there's some things I think that are fair to gripe about it, but I think everything else that we set aside, the junkyard fight scene is good.
It works.
Yeah. I think even Christopher Reeve. No, even Christopher Reeve, who hates this movie and who has said a lot of bad things about this movie, said that he liked that scene. I think it's the only scene in the movie he enjoys. It's also, I mean, it's funny because it's hard for me not to go like, oh, the scene where it was just you twice. It's such like an actor move. You know what scene's great? The scene where it was just me, but like two of me. I think that was
act with anybody. Great.
I don't in any way think that's what he means, because I do think it's the best scene in the movie, but it's funny to think about it.
No, it's very funny to think. It's like, yeah, that scene where I got to act across finally a worthy scene partner myself. Brilliant. The best.
Yeah. But no, that scene is really good. And weirdly, like the only thing I really had a clear memory of about this movie from when I saw it, I didn't remember most of this movie, which I did see when I was a kid, but I remembered the junkyard scene very well.
No, I remember Richard Pryor being in it.
Yes.
No, I do remember the straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa and blowing out the Olympic torch. I remember that as well.
Which also, as much as like, I think Lester's humor is overused and definitely hit or miss for me, I think it's a perfect joke because it's not just, we didn't really talk about it, but the shot is in the foreground. There's an Italian man who's setting up a cart with Leaning Tower of Pisa replicas. And in the background, you can see the tower. He's got a great spot. He's right in front of it. Superman shows up as he's unpacking them, straightens it, and then he sees it and he slams one of them. They're like porcelain or something, and he slams it on the ground because he's mad because now he can't sell the leaning ones because it's straightened. Cut to,
and then he bites his thumb at Superman too. He's like,
yeah, he bites his thumb because he's Italian. Cut to the end of the movie. Superman, now good, is trying to fix the thing that he did. Yeah. He goes back to Pisa, where the same guy has now ordered straight Tower of Pisa replicas and is unloading them as Superman fixes it. That's a perfect joke.
And then he breaks the next one.
Yeah, and he breaks that one.
It is a perfect joke.
Yeah, it really is. It's great. It's like just, its own short film, and it's very funny. I really did enjoy that.
Yeah, it's so I did remember that bit. I remember the junkyard fight, and I remember Richard Pryor being in it. I'm amazed that I had no memory of the video game.
Right. Yeah.
Which was the weird thing is that video game footage cost an absurd amount of money in 1983.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly.
And they used that instead of like actual missiles dodging Superman, which would have cost less and looked better.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
It's because video games were all the rage in 83, baby.
Well, and I think they probably thought they were going to get a tie-in video game, and they were probably putting it in the movie. But I also I do want to talk, because I talked a bit about how Lorelai is my favorite villain character in the movie, and she's great. Because I enjoyed her so much, I kind of did a little bit of a deep dive on Pamela Stephenson, who plays her. And I don't know if you know this. I did not realize this until I looked her up. She's married to Billy Connolly, and they have kids together.
That's great.
Yeah, that made me really happy. Billy Connolly, obviously, who we recently did Boondock Saints to All Saints Day, his finest work. But I love Billy Connolly. I didn't realize they were together. But I thought that was really cool.
Calling me John Cleese Connolly.
Exactly. I'm better than him. I'm actually a good dude now.
Now.
Well, look up John Cleese. I love that man, but his recent track record.
Oh, no, I thought you. I was thinking Billy Connolly. I was like, now does he have skeletons that I'm unaware of?
No, that's why I was trying to clarify. Billy Connolly consistently been great.
No, John Cleese. I'm aware. I'm aware.
Yeah.
Don't meet your heroes.
Yeah. A lot of the Pythons disappointing. But anyway, yeah, like that just made me happy that her, because like I said, she's great in this movie, Independent. I didn't realize who she was, and then I like that they're together and they're still together. They've been together a long time. Yeah, and yeah, she seems utterly delightful, and he is utterly delightful.
No, she was a genuine bright spot in this movie, playing the Miss Tessmacher role.
Yeah, but even like floozier.
Yes.
Yeah, because Tessmacher was like, she was sort of a sophisticate, and she sort of was like a little flirty with Superman when he showed up in the first one. But this is like full on.
Straight up bangs evil Superman.
Yeah, which again, honestly is a pretty audacious move for a Superman movie.
Yeah.
Because I think, don't they show that they're like in bed, right? Like it's like,
oh yeah,
it's not ambiguous. Like it's clear.
It's not subtle.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, Robert Vaughn, I love. He's great in the Naked Gun movies. I think he gets closer to Lex Luthor in this movie than anything Gene Hackman did in the first two.
I would agree. Yeah, he seems more menacing and less comic, which is weird because Lester's movies are more comic. But I think it does. I agree with you that it feels close. He feels like a rich billionaire. And I also do think it's not a huge difference, maybe like on paper, but the difference between wanting to cause an earthquake to flood California to get new waterfront property versus wanting to cause global weather phenomenon in order to destroy crops and seemingly cause famine for profit. I think that does feel more menacing, like instead of more goofy. Evil. It feels more evil, and I think it's like closer to right of like what Lex Luthor should be doing, which he's obviously not him, but is him, Yeah,
I mean, because 100% that was Lex Luthor in the first draft of the script.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And when they couldn't get Gene Hackman, they made up Webster.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that they didn't use another double L name for the guy.
Yeah, probably better that they just
probably better that they didn't, but but there are enough double L's in Superman's life. Lois Lane, Lana Lang, Lex Luthor. There are plenty.
Lemmy Lolson.
Yeah. Larry Light.
Yeah,
Lazaro Looperman. Loraniac.
Leonard Lod.
Leonard Lod. And his father, Lor-Lel.
Oh man. Also, that's another big, I know we're done talking about Superman 2, but that was another thing that was like a big rift, was that they didn't want to pay for the Marlon Brando footage to use in Superman 2, which is kind of where the falling out happened, which is why Brando's not in 2.
Yeah. Because Christopher Reeve genuinely disliked Brando, though, which I think is pretty funny.
I mean, Brando seems like he was tough to work with.
That Marlon Brando is in the movie, gets top billing in Superman 1, and phones it in.
What? Yes. Yeah, which also, I mean, watch Hearts of Darkness and you can see Coppola sort of losing it about whether Brando's even going to show up to be in Apocalypse Now. Like, Brando later in his career became very difficult. But that actually reminded me of another silver lining about this movie, so thank you for saying that, which is this is the first movie that Christopher Reeve is top billed. Because Brando was top billed in 1 and Hackman was top billed in 2.
And he deserved top billing in all 3. 1, because he's effing Superman.
Right. Yeah. And it's, I mean, like, what do you think of Brando like genuinely in these movies? Because I know a lot of people love him. I'm going to throw out a hot take and just say he's fine. I didn't think he was great.
Here's the thing. No one is going to see a Superman movie because of who's in it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter who plays Jor-El.
And also, look, my blazing hottest take that I'm going to drop here for you guys at the end. I think Russell Crowe was a better Jor-El than Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, I'm just dropping it.
I will co-sign that, sir. I'm in.
Yeah, there it is. And Russell, if you're listening, and I hope you are, we love you and come on the show. Let's talk Gladiator 2.
Let's talk Virtuosity.
Oh my God, I love that movie so much.
I'm sure it has bad reviews.
It 100% has bad. We should do it on this show. There is nothing stopping us from doing it on this show. But I love Virtuosity and I love him in it. So yeah, like
fair. Yeah. And we kind of just did it, but stay tuned for a random date in the future.
Also Too Good, but The Nice Guy is one of my favorite rewatch movies. So good.
One of mine is LA Confidential.
Also great. Yeah. Russell Crowe's had a great career.
Listen.
Yeah. Well,
if you take away one thing from this episode about Superman 3, Russell Crowe, pretty good actor.
Yeah, hot take. But yeah, Brando, like, I don't know. He didn't deserve top billing, and he's fine as Jor-El, but I think a little overrated.
I mean, he's the biggest star, but
he's a name. Like, he's definitely a name at that point. And Christopher Reeve, this is what put him on the map. So it's like, I don't agree with it, but I understand why in the first one he wasn't getting it. But in the second one, it seems like Christopher Reeve should have been one, and Gene Hackman should have gotten the and Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor credit.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But yeah, like, because if you're just looking at a movie poster, it just has the S and it says Superman, You'll Believe a Man Can Fly, Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman. You're like, is Marlon Brando playing Superman? Is Vito Corleone playing Clark Kent?
Because I know it's not Hackman.
It's definitely not Hackman. Yeah. But whatever. We did it, I think.
We definitely did it. Also, like, if we weren't clear, I said it. I think I unambiguously said it, but just to state it again, Christopher Reeve is so good as Superman. Like, that will always be a silver lining. I think all of these movies, we think they're better than they are because of how good he is. Because they all have their flaws. Like, 1 and 2 both have issues.
They for sure do. But yeah, next week we're going to watch Superman 4, which I remember loving as a kid, and I'm scared to rewatch it again. And I think that's a good point to leave it out on. And I know, because I know it's awful.
Well, I'll say this before we leave. The one thing I do know is that, you know, Christopher Reeve wasn't happy with this. He didn't want to come back for Superman 4, but he did because they gave him a lot more creative control. So I think in his hands, it's going to be good, Andy.
Let's hope.
It's going to be great.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashcan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.